From the News Center in Phoenix, this is Cool News 10.
Good morning. Mike Era is on assignment this week. I'm Randy Ripplinger. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher flew unexpectedly this morning to Northern Ireland. She is visiting British soldiers wounded in Monday's ambush and is meeting with the army leaders and officials of Northern Ireland's provincial government. There's no word that Thatcher's visit means a change in British policy, but Doug Tunnell reports a change in policy is being talked about.
The British government is reassessing security procedures in Northern Ireland after Monday's bombings claimed the lives of 18 British soldiers and 1 civilian. Doug Tunnell, CBS News, Belfast.
State Department officials are in Mexico City this morning in an attempt to break a deadlock in talks for the sale of Mexican natural gas to the United States. A number of issues will be discussed, but one that will not be talked about is the refusal of Mexico to consider sharing the cost of cleaning up the Mexican oil spill that is polluting the coast of Texas. Here at home, the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Agency has several customers of the American Atomics Corporation to check for radioactive tritium leaks. The NRC gave the order following allegations by a former employee of the Tucson firm that leak tests of tritium-filled tubes were falsified in July. The latest development comes after it was learned last week that the radioactive gas is still leaking out of the plant, even though operations have been stopped. The problems at the plant came to light after high tritium radiation levels were discovered near the facility, forcing the closure of the Tucson Unified School District Central Kitchen. That kitchen is still closed, and officials are trying to decide the best way to get rid of some $300,000 worth of tritium-contaminated food. School officials at the Pima County Health Department would like to bury it. The Atomic Energy Corporation Commission says the food can be safely burned. In the meantime, some AEC officials have been in Washington this week conferring with NRC and the Environmental Protection Agency experts to come up with a way to stop the radiation leaks from the plant. In Washington, there has been another allegation and another angry denial. Fred Graham reports the allegation concerns the White House Chief of Staff, Hamilton Jordan.
The controversy began when the owners of Studio 54 claimed that Jordan had sniffed cocaine in the basement there in June of last year. Fred Graham, CBS News, Washington.
Well, there is some more disheartening economic news this morning, and we'll have that story and a lot more in a moment. There's another sign this morning that we are in a recession. The government's barometer of future economic trends fell in July for the 3rd time in 4 months. The index of leading economic indicators dropped 0.4% last month. On Wall Street this morning at 11 a.m. Phoenix time, the Dow Jones average was down 1.88 at the 882.76 level, trading as light with 19.5 million shares. Tuition at the state's 3 universities may be going up soon. Proposals now before a committee of the Arizona Board of Regents would increase tuition at the Arizona State University and the University of Arizona by $50 for residents and $600 for non-residents. These and smaller increases for northern Arizona would be spread over the next 2 years. No final decision will be made until the full Board of Regents receives a formal recommendation this fall. Back-to-school clothing is another expense for education, and a South Phoenix church is, for the 12th year, trying to help those who don't have enough money. However, Bud Foster reports inflation has left the church in a $6,000 pinch.
Number 22!
4,800 children will come here to get free clothing to go back to school. Bud Foster, Cool News 10.
If you'd like to help out, donations can be sent to the Children's Clothing Fund, Post Office Box 1908, that's 1908, Phoenix, Arizona. The zip code is 85001. Well, when you're 5 years old and going to school for the first time, it can be frightening. And Juanita Stevenson reports that is something thousands of Valley youngsters experienced yesterday.
Okay, honey, and we'll pin it on. You want to keep it, and you give it to your teacher, and then she'll pin it on right there, okay?
It's an exciting day for Gavin McCullough. Juanita Stevenson, Cool News 10.
I wouldn't go through that again for $1 million. The weather and labor news, those stories are coming up next. Contract talks between automakers and the United Auto Workers Union are showing no signs of progress. The contracts run out next month. Meanwhile, around 15,000 members of the United Transportation Union have joined the strike against the financially troubled Rock Island Railroad. The Chicago-based railroad moves grain from the nation's midsection and serves some 27,000 commuters. And talks resumed this morning between the three striking unions and the Southern California Rapid Transit District. The strike is in its 4th day. Well, Dave Munsey's on vacation, but Joe Doherty is here to bring us up to date on the weather, and I understand it's MOSAW.
More of the same
in Arizona.
Arizona, but there's a lot of weather around the country. Sunny conditions and 101 degrees, so Arizona is very nice this time of year, Randy.
No hurricanes.
No hurricanes.
Don't suppose we'll ever have a Hurricane Joe or Hurricane Randy.
We might.
I hope not. The Phoenix Giants slipped past the Hawaii Islanders last night in extra innings. Chris Borges singled in the 10th inning and knocked in the winning run and gave the Giants a 2-1 victory. The U.S. Open Tennis Championship at New York, John McEnroe will meet Czechoslovakian Pavel Slosel later today, and CBS Sports has announced a 3-year contract to continue televising the U.S. Open and the U.S. Clay Court Championships. The joint announcement was made by representative of CBS Sports and the United States Tennis Association. In a moment, we'll be back with some news from the art world. Mountains of gold and a sea of whiskey is what baited Soviet Bolshoi dancer Alexander Godunov to stay in this country. At least that's what the Russian newspaper Literary Gazette says. The Soviets are just today reading the accounts, for their first accounts, of Godunov's defection to the United States, but the newspaper story stopped short of actually saying the ballet star defected. It simply says he disappeared last Wednesday. 61 years ago, a young man began to study the art of drawing in New York City. By 1922, his work had already begun showing in Paris. This week, the world-famous artist is in our valley for a special showing of the works of his art in the Arizona State University. Kathleen Wachter talked to him.
His work covers half a century. His name, Henry Strader. Kathleen Walker, Cool News 10.
Well, we have a saying in the news business, when dog bites man, that isn't news. But when man bites dog, of course it is. Well, a story out of Salisbury, North Carolina puts a new twist on the maxim. It seems that Raymond Lemming's dog shot him. Lemmings was slightly wounded when man's best friend tripped a loaded .22 caliber rifle in the back of his van. The canine's master was released after treatment at the hospital, and despite Lemming's story, the dog was not charged. Join us tonight with Bill Close and Dana Eubanks. Thank you for joining us.
From the News Center in Phoenix, this has been Cool News 10. Watch Cool News at 6 and 10 p.m. 7 nights a week on Channel 10.